Welcome back to Kings of Columbus. Doug Lesmerises, Bill Landis. We are talking about Ohio State's best position groups for 2024. Landis, you have drawn up. This is my favorite kind of show. You do the work, and then I'm just like, oh, that's wrong. So you drew up an entire depth chart projecting Ohio State for 2024. You and Austin Ward have talked about that on a daily. We're going to draft the best position groups just by starters, but we'll talk a little bit about the depth as well. Actually, if you want to include the depth in your draft, that's fine. Best position groups, 10 position groups. You and I are going to draft them and talk about everybody we expect to be on the field for Ohio State in 2024. How you feeling, by the way? You excited? You ready to roll another draft?
I love two things. I love drafting and I love projecting depth charts, even though they're almost always wrong. But it's okay. We're having fun. It's great. It's all feeling great.
This is great. January is for depth charts, man.
That's right.
Come on.
That's right.
It's absolutely the best. So I will say one thing off the top that I think surprised you slightly was this exercise for me, just running through everybody, actually pulled me back a little bit on what I think is a lot of excitement from the Ohio State fan base about how good this team is going to be in 2024. Because should we just draft? It's like the things that they're good at, they're almost going to be more gooder at. Right. Yes. But also, I think that any problems you thought they had, I don't know that they're magically solved. I can remember one time, I think it was a Big Ten coach back in the day. It was like, hey, because everybody, when they're evaluating teams in the offseason, one of the main things they do is look at returning starters. And I think he was like, just because guys are returning doesn't mean they're good. Like, that's not always a good thing. Right. Sometimes you want to refresh a little bit. And actually, there's a couple places where maybe you would say to yourself, I mean, they are getting a refresh in a couple rooms, but there also might be a place like, man, they kind of use a refresh there. And it's like kind of a lot of the same. So it's really one position group where I mean that. But we're like, so I think we'll have a good discussion about this. And then there are like maybe two. There's one thing I already told you I'm preemptively mad about, which is my favorite kind of mad. Do you live your life that way? That you imagine the fights you could be in, and like you see the people out in the world as like, oh, if that person wanted to fight with me, here's exactly what I would say to them. And then they just push their shopping cart past you in the produce aisle, and they don't ram you, and maybe they took up too much space in the produce aisle for a second and a half, but you were like, if you don't move your cart, you have 2 seconds before I go off on you about your lack of awareness for the rest of the world. And why should you get to take up the whole produce aisle? And I am ready to tear that person to pieces, and then it's fine. You don't live that way?
No, I'm not a confrontational person, nor am I a hypothetical confrontational person. So, I have those thoughts occasionally, sure, but no, I don't play out the scenarios in my head and plan out what I might say if stuff got real.
I'm 20% confrontational and 96% hypothetical.
Yeah.
Okay, let's do a draft. I'll let you pick first.
Okay. I will take the cornerbacks first.
Yeah, I bet. I don't know that there's a lot of disagreement here. I don't know that there's a lot of people. Corner, C-O-R-N-E-R, not quarter. Will Howard will be around later. Corner. I think most Ohio State fans listening to this could probably go 8 or 9 for 10 on the order that we're going to draft these guys in. Why are you taking the corners first?
Well, you kind of crystallized it for me once we decided we were going to include Jordan Hancock in this group, because Jordan Hancock plays the nickel, which is like effectively a safety position, but certainly has corner skills. And Jordan Hancock is with the cornerbacks. He comes out of the cornerback room. So I think it makes sense to include him here with this group. But then once you do that, I mean, I just think they have 3 studs here. Like I love Denzel Burke. I think he's like an All-American candidate next year. I actually thought Davis Igbinosun had a great 2023. I think he could be better in 2024. Just sort of like did exactly what you need him to do in that spot. Like, plays off coverage, gives up some stuff, but he tackles well. And that's all I think you can ask him to do. And then I think Jordan Hancock is like kind of the glue of the defense that kind of ties the whole thing together with his versatility and ability to play the run, in a cornerback's body and then cover like a corner when it's asked of him. So like they have 3 pros here. They have a couple of guys that I think could push for first round draft pick contention in Denzel Burke and Jordan Hancock if everything breaks right for them. And it's just like the position group. And you can get into the depth too, like with Jermaine Matthews, who I really like. it's just a position group that I don't really have any questions about. Like, I thought they were going to be really good last year. I think they're going to be even better this year. It's just really solid.
I also like the fact that they kind of have different skill sets,
Mhm.
that Igbenogson is a different kind of corner than Denzel Burke on the outside, and then Jordan Hancock's versatility. Davison Igbenogson, 770 snaps last year. Jordan Hancock, 613. Denzel Burke, 579. It's funny. I think we probably have like a couple Cleveland Browns fans that listen to this show with our Ohio-based audience, and they do remind me a little bit of the three corners for the Browns. And actually, one of them is named Denzel too. So it's like Denzel Ward is Denzel Burke. Martin Emerson on the outside is it's a longer, more physical corner, kind of like Davison Igbenogson, and then Greg Newsome in the slot. I actually think is a lot like Jordan Hancock in the slot, and that's the strength of that team. These are three NFL corners, and the one thing about this is, what beside like January is for depth charts, March and April is for young guys shooting up depth charts. And there's a little bit to this idea of so many guys being back that we're not going to have that nearly as much as we've had in some years, because if one of these corners would have gone to the NFL, what does Jermaine Matthews look like in spring? How ready is he to take a starting job? We wouldn't have taken our eyes off Jermaine Matthews.
Yeah.
And instead, it's be ready in case there's an injury. But otherwise, it's not your turn yet. You're going to have to wait till year 3 to start, assuming everybody stays healthy.
Yeah, I think that's right. Maybe a sprinkling of Jermaine here and there. Like, not, I don't think we're talking about a 3-man rotation with Denzel Burke, Davison Igbenogson, and Jermaine Matthews. But if you're Ohio State and you're thinking you're going to play for a national championship and you have to, get through 16 games, I do think that invites some opportunity to play a little more depth. But yeah, I think it's mostly wait your turn, unless he if he balls out and spring ball and then keeps balling out and can't, maybe I'll change my tone on that. But I think that's the right view on it right now.
So I also would have taken the corners number 1. Jermaine Matthews, 192 snaps last year, did have to play a little bit, right? Denzel was hurt for a little bit. So, I mean, again, depth, quality, starter quality depth is what championship teams are made of. So there's a part of me that's like, and it's going to be multiple positions here. When, again, you have so many guys back. I almost feel bad for some of these second and third year guys like, you probably thought 2024 was going to be your year. And it's not if guys stay healthy, but also you never stay healthy 1 through 22 through a whole season. And then if you have a guy who could start for almost anybody in the country waiting right there, that's how you keep rolling when things go wrong. So you take the corners number 1. I'm going to take the running backs number 2.
That's what I would have done.
And this is a longer discussion here. Let's see. I did some running back. I got my college rule notebook, and I wrote down things. Do you know what percentage? This is Travion Henderson and Ole Miss transfer Quinshon Judkins as the two-headed backfield. And also, thank goodness they say the Dallin Head redshirt. I actually think maybe he'll redshirt again. Can you redshirt again? So that he could be on the team in 2036 when he's approaching his 40th birthday?
Yeah.
Make sure you redshirt Dallin Hayden. Do you know what percent of snaps Travion Henderson played this season when he was healthy? So he missed 3 games, but you take those away entirely. The percent of snaps that he played in the games that he did play. You want to guess?
90?
62.
Oh, really? I thought it was really high. Okay.
62, which actually is still pretty high. Do you want to guess how many snaps? So Quinshon Judkins played every game at Ole Miss.
Yep.
Do you want to guess the percentage of snaps he played there?
I'll go a little lower with my projections, I guess. 78.
72. Okay. 72. So 62 plus 72 is 134. So they got to pull 34% of the action away from these two guys. Is this wonderful, seamless? Everybody takes a little bit less of the burden, and they both are fresh and healthy, both at the end of the season when it matters for Michigan and the playoff and when they get to the NFL draft? Or is there somewhere where it's like 2 number 1 running backs sharing a backfield? All good? All good. All good. Or what percent? None?
I'm 0% that. Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's all. Yeah. I think Travion has always talked about, appreciating the value of not having to be a guy that has to take 90% of the snaps and carry the ball 300 times. And I think Quinshon Judkins, over 2 years of getting run into the ground by Lane Kiffin, has come to long for the same thing.
Oh,
no, I don't think that'll be an issue.
So the Georgia model, we've talked about the Georgia model, right? Georgia plays multiple backs. Sometimes they play three, and it actually gets kind of confusing. In 2021, when they had James Cook, NFL running back, Zamir White, NFL running back, and Kenny McIntosh was the third guy. 2021, when they won the national title, percentage of snaps, James Cook, 34%, Zamir White, 31%, Kenny McIntosh, 19%. That's nuts, like the way they spread it out that much. The best example, I think, right, is Chubb and Michelle. Nick Chubb and Leah Michelle from Glee.
That's right.
She's spectacular.
Yeah, she's a great running back.
Nick Chubb and Sonny Michelle in 2016 at Georgia. Nick Chubb played 45% of the snaps, and Sonny Michelle played 39%. So that's pretty good. Then in 2017, they decided to throw DeAndre Swift into the mix also. Nick Chubb played 35.6% of the snaps. Sonny Michelle played 35.4% of the snaps. And DeAndre Swift played 21.5% of the snaps. So again, that's three-way. This is two guys. Dallin Hayden is not going to get 15 or 20% of the tailback snaps, do you think, right?
No, maybe 5, maybe.
Yeah, assuming full health and this kind of thing.
Yeah.
But do you think that they are going to use the running back so much more that that Henderson and Judkins could both get something like 17 or 18 touches a game, even if they're only each playing 43% of the snaps because they're going to run it more?
Yeah. Yes, I think that's not a bad number for touches, but I don't know if it's necessarily because they're going to run it more. And maybe this is just my personal preference creeping in, but like I would like to see them throw the ball to Travion more.
Yeah.
So like if Travion's 17 to 18 is like, 14 rushes and 4 receptions, then I don't know if that's necessarily an uptick in the amount of time they're running the ball. But I do think you're going to see both those guys touch the ball about that many times per game. Yeah.
I want Travion to have 50 catches this year. I just don't think they're going to do it. Like there's no indication. We have no indication from Ryan Day's offense.
Yeah, well, I guess we'll depend on the OC, I guess, right? If we think,
but it's still Ryan Day's offense. Ryan Day's offense.
Yeah.
They just don't do that as much as I think they should. So, sign me up for 14 rushes and 4 receptions a game for Travion, and 16 and a half carries a game for Judkins, and let's go. That sounds great to me. I don't think they'd throw it that much. So this is a new world, though. Like this idea, 2 guys like this, 2 number 1 backs. That's why we drafted him number 2 here. And we agree on this. This has a chance to be a spectacular running back situation.
I think it has a chance to be maybe the best in the country. Travion's health is part of that, and his durability is, a question mark for him. He's missed significant time each of the last 2 seasons, and at the end of his freshman year, even when he played, he was banged up. So that has to be a part of, whatever the ceiling is here. But yeah, I think Quinshon Judkins has arguably been the best Power 5 running back the last 2 years. His efficiency might not say that, but I think it's because he gets so many carries. But when you look at missed tackles and yards after contact and ability to spring some big runs and consistency, I don't know who's been better than him. And then Travion, if it's going to be the guy that we saw for that 4-game stretch between Wisconsin and Michigan, then if you're going to get those 2 guys at their A game week after week, then yeah, I think it has a chance to be awesome.
Who do you think had more snaps this year, Travion Henderson or the combination of Chip Trainum, Dallin Hayden, and Mine Williams?
I would say Travion. Is it not Travion?
It is not Travion.
That's interesting.
398 snaps for Travion, 419 for those other 3. So again, for the overall number of offensive plays, accounting for the fact that Travion missed 3 games, 49% of the snaps, those other three guys were on the field. 47% of the snaps Travion was on. And then I guess the rest of the time they were empty. So like on one hand, it's like, okay, when Travion's in there, he's been used to being on the field 2/3 of the time. And Judkins has been used to being on the field 3/4 of the time. But for the year, Travion played less than half the snaps. Fewer than half.
Fewer than half the snaps.
Fewer than half the snaps. So, and honestly, listen, like a year ago, right after Travion coming off his 2022, where he had the foot injury and he wasn't himself, and Mayan Williams had a very interesting relationship with Ohio State fans over the years. There are people who were like, "Oh, this guy's our number one back. What are we doing? Physical." Blah. And then, it reached the point of like, okay, well, I mean, it's not that. Like he's not better than Travion. But there were a lot of people, I don't remember what I said, maybe us, who a year ago were like, hey, 2-man backfield, let's roll. Mayan Williams and Travion Henderson. So like if you had any enthusiasm for an equal share in the backfield between Travion Henderson and Mayan Williams, then you're freaking out that it's Travion Henderson and Quinshon Judkins, because no offense to Mayan, that upgrade is significant.
It is significant. You're talking about like a nice player in Mayan Williams, and I think like the rare kind of running back that you consider drafting in the first round, which is what Quinshon Judkins is.
My goodness. Just throw that right out there. Wow. Put that on a man. Put that right on him. If I think people should. So the whole thing this week was that the Kansas City Chiefs fullback's wife made the special Travis Kelce.
49ers Juszczyk's wife.
Oh, it's a cross team jacket sewing extravaganza. Oh, now I'm not in favor of it. You can't be taking a jacket from an opposite. What if they made the Super Bowl? Oh,
she does it for a lot of players. She made one for Simone Biles.
It's a spying operation by the fullback to get intel based off the jacket. There's probably a transmitter in there. Don't let Taylor Swift in the locker room. Yeah. Oh, I thought it was the Chiefs fullback. It's the Niners fullback?
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm outraged. Now I've turned on Taylor Swift, like right now. Now she's being used as a spy.
Sorry to burst your bubble.
I was fine. All the way through. Great. Transmitter. Please check the jacket for a transmitter. You should buy a Quinshon, you being a fan person listening to this, buy a Quinshon Judkins jersey and a Travion jersey and then slice them up. But it's not that you wind up throwing away parts of the jersey. You make two separate jerseys, and don't cut it down the middle, because then it's just you've changed the number. But you can somehow cut it diagonal, maybe, or top to bottom, right? So that you can have two.
You can do like front and back of one, and then flip it.
Yeah. So let's see some duo Judkins Travion jerseys this year. Let's go, people. Because we've never experienced this. What even compares to this? Dan Herron and Brandon Sane. You were in elementary school then.
I was.
When's the last time that there was a situation like this?
I do remember in the spring of 2018, Mike Weber saying that he and J.K. Dobbins are going to be like Glendale White and Reggie Bush, and everyone wrote that story. But then it turned out to not be that. So, I don't know the last time Ohio State's had this.
You know what is a secret of sports writing? Sometimes we want to give advice to young sports writers, right? We're here to help. Sometimes you don't have to write everything that people say.
Yeah. But also, if you're like an SEO clicks world, it's not the worst thing in the world to have like Lendell White and Reggie Bush ? In your headline, even if it's total BS.
So also, we're going to have to come up with naming this backfield will be a thing, and we would aspire here on the podcast in Kings and Columbus to come up with the name for this.
Oh yeah, I don't know, man. What could that be? I don't know what.
I don't. You know what it is? I have it, but I can't say it. I do. I have it. So, what is the end of Travion's? Take like the last syllables of his first name.
Eon.
So we'd have to tweak it a little bit, and then the backfield is QAnon.
Oh, QEon. There you go.
We got to be careful.
Yeah.
Because Q's Q. Careful.
Yeah.
I'll take that part out. No need to go there. It's not McAfee. We're not doing McAfee here.
No.
Running backs were second. Who you taking third?
So we're splitting up defensive line, right? In the tackles and
Yep.
ends.
Mhm.
Okay. I'll take the ends then.
That's who I had third.
Yeah.
Why?
Jack Sawyer, JT Tuimoloau. Like this is putting, I think, like a lot of stock into what we saw out of Jack Sawyer the second half of the season. It just seemed to me like it clicked for him. He kind of became the guy we sort of hoped he would be. And it's not just the 3 sacks he had against Missouri. I thought he was very good, like in the last 4 or 5 games of the season. And Jim Knowles like talked a lot about that too. I felt like I saw that both against the run and the pass, like getting pressures, maybe not quite getting home the way you'd like to see, and which is like a larger discussion, I think, about this defensive end group in general. But I think just, in terms of impacting the game in multiple ways, Jack, I thought, took a tremendous step forward last year. And JT looked like he was on a similar path to me last year. And then, like, I remember that play in the Wisconsin game where he got like folded in half, like down on the goal line. I didn't think he was the same player after that. Not that he was bad, just like he had a couple game stretch there where he was really productive, and then it kind of fell off from that point forward. So, but we know what kind of player he is, and he's not the Penn State 2022 game guy every week, but I think he's a defensive end who worries you every week if you're an opposing offense. So the combination of those 2 guys coming back and I think playing at a high level with some enticing depth in Kenyatta Jackson and Caden Curry, I think makes it a really strong position group, 1, and 2, one that has a pretty high ceiling if Jack and JT continue to take steps forward.
JT Tuimoloau 677 snaps last year. Jack Sawyer 610. Kenyatta Jackson 174. Caden Curry 165. Mitchell Melton 67. We have gone like back around on the rotating defensive lineman discussion now. I don't know what I would do if I was Kenyatta Jackson. He's entering his 3rd year of college. He hasn't played. And I still think he just has a different profile than the 2 guys in front of him. The fact that we'll get the defensive tackles, but that Mike Hall is not back, and Mike Hall was a good pass rusher on the interior. Does their Rushman 3rd down package have to include Kenyatta Jackson at end, or maybe Caden Curry at end, and you're sliding JT or Jack inside? Like
I think so. Yeah.
He's like the number 1 guy. Is feel bad the right word? I just think you would expect by the time I get to my 3rd year at Ohio State, I'm going to have a chance to really, show what I can do and maybe have a chance to go to the NFL. And to ask Kenyatta Jackson in year 3 to be happy with 150 snaps, I think is not reasonable.
No, I agree with you. And 677 for JT? Like that feels like a little too much to me. I don't know how you feel about that. Like I think
I agree.
I think 1,300-ish snaps between Jack and JT in a year when you only play 13 games is probably a little too much. And I don't want to sound like I'm talking out of both sides of my mouth, because I was somewhat critical at times last year of when they rotated defensive linemen. So like I'm not trying to backtrack now.
You mean in 2022?
In 2022, right? Sorry, excuse me. I thought there was a little bit of an overcorrection this year, and I don't know that it killed them, but I thought it was noticeable at times that like Tyleek was a little out of gas sometimes, and maybe Kenyatta Jackson or Caden Curry or Mitchell Melton, who hardly played at all, could have given them a little more juice at points in games when I felt like Jack and JT had just been playing a lot. So I would hope that they maybe pull back a little bit on playing Jack and JT basically every single snap and allow Kenyatta and Caden and Mitchell and I don't know, Edric Houston, if he's ready to play as a true freshman, to get a little bit of run. Especially, again, like we said with the corners, if they're going to end up playing 15, 16 games this year, it just feels a little untenable. And there were ends that played more. Like I'm looking at Power 5 defensive ends, like 677 for JT was 14th in the country. So it's not like he led the country. But there aren't a ton of guys who are playing upwards of 700 snaps. And playing at a high level. So I think they need to keep that in mind, even though they have, 2 guys who they clearly like a lot in Jack and JT.
Kenyatta Jackson gave like an eyeballs emoji or something in January that made you think. He seems to have like a lot of friends who go to Florida. He's a Florida guy, right? Go to Florida State and that kind of thing. And I think it just kept you, especially like if both JT and Jack are back, what does that mean for Kenyatta Jackson? And so, certainly I'm not predicting, we're not in the business of like telling guys who should transfer, whatever, but like I think I would imagine in spring football, it would be reassuring for Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson for them to believe there's a plan for them to contribute and be on the field. They have to earn it. They're not going to give anything away. But as juniors, to have a chance to do something, because otherwise, like if their plan is not presented, then I don't know. Right. And that's just nothing other than I think Caden Curry and Kenyatta Jackson are both good football players, and neither of them played 200 snaps of defense in year 2. And the guys who blocked him last year are both back. That's all.
Yeah. I think too, like this is a larger conversation, I think, for the offseason. And I would like to be able to ask Jim Knowles a little bit about it the next time we talk to him, whenever that is. I really think with all of the defensive line talent that Ohio State guys coming back, and also just sort of generally with where football's going, they need to be a little less static as a 4-down team. And I think embrace changing things up sometimes up front, whether that's playing 5 lineman packages or doing some 3-down where like maybe the guy in the middle is JT Tuimoloau and you have Kenyatta as a stand-up end. Like I think you have an ability to get creative here if you want to. And it requires Jim Knowles and Larry Johnson obviously being on the same page about that. But I would, and there's other spots in the defense where you can do that too with some individuals we'll talk about. But I would hope that they embrace that next year. It feels like the next step in the evolution of this defense. But if they're just in the static 4-down world like they were last year, then if I were Kenyatta Jackson, I'd wonder about my spot in that too.
Yeah, too many good players. Hashtag
too
many
right.
good players.
That's
favorite
right.
Favorite offseason hashtag. We agree on the corners first, the running back second, and the defensive ends third. When we come back, we will continue our draft of Ohio State position groups for 2024 right after this on Kings of Columbus. Back on Kings of Columbus, by the way, we are not going to do what you're watching, what you eating, what you're thinking at the end of Kings of Columbus, because this week, special occasion, we did it on Kings of the North because Ari Wasserman joined us on Kings of the North. If you enjoyed when Bill and Ari and I were together back in the day at Cleveland.com, if you enjoyed when Ari and Bill were together at The Athletic, go watch Kings of the North this week, because we had Ari on and it was sort of like a roster building discussion. Certainly Ohio State in that conversation in a big way, but also applying it to Northern football teams. And if we're going to have Ari on, Landis, we can't not talk about food and TV and life. So that's why we did Whatcha with Ari on KOTN.
There's no one better to have conversations about food, TV, and life with than Ari, because he has strong opinions on all three and he loves to share them.
That's a very nice way to say that. You're
Yeah.
so magnanimous. So we would direct you to that on our Kings of the North channel. If you enjoy the content here on the podcast, whether it's on YouTube or on a podcast, if you enjoy Kings of Columbus, Kings of the North it has been a totally separate feed, both on YouTube and on podcasts. If you like that broader Northern college football discussion that Bill and I do, it's not here anymore. It's there. And now we put Ari on the hook, man. No better bait than Ari Wasserman.
That's right.
Boom. Bringing in the big fish. Also, since we're not doing what you eating, what you talking, and what you thinking, whatever we call it, it was your son's birthday recently. It is my daughter's birthday today. So happy birthday to my daughter, Kira, who is 20 today. That makes me significantly older than you. I'll take the safeties next. I'll take the safeties fourth. And this is my preemptively angry discussion. Because explain your starters on the depth chart for the safeties in 2024.
Lathan Ransom at the bandit spot that he played last year before he got hurt. For now anyway, the Jordan Hancock Sonny Styles split at nickel /Sam, and then adjuster TBD, but I think we all think that'll be Malik Hartford.
I don't want Jordan Hancock and Sonny Styles to split a spot. I don't like it.
Yeah, I don't know that that's worth getting preemptively angry about just yet.
Don't take that away from me. No. The whole point is to be preemptively angry. That's the best part about being preemptively angry. That when it turns out later, there was no reason to be that way. You still got to get the rage out.
Yeah, that's fair. That's healthy.
And then I get to come in like on the first day of spring practice and be like, Jim Knowles, how could it possibly be that Jordan Hancock and Sonny Styles are going to have to split a spot, and you're only going to have one of those guys on the field at a time this season, when clearly they're two of your 6 best defensive players? How could you do that? And then he'll be like, we're not going to do that. And I'll be like, oh, okay.
And then that makes the revelation feel better, right? Because because you're angry about it. Okay.
No, and there's not, I mean, I get I got the rage out, but also everything's okay. So before Lathan Ransom got hurt, I did the number of defensive snaps per game where like they were first team snaps, right? Mm-hmm. So a lot of games, it was all of them. Some of the blowouts, it wasn't all of them. And then what was the combined percentage that Sonny Styles and Jordan Hancock played of the available first team snaps for two spots? So you know what I'm saying? So if the defense played 100 snaps and if Hancock and Styles each played 100, they played 100% of the available snaps. If the defense played 100 snaps and Jordan Hancock played 80 snaps and Sonny Styles played 60 snaps, now that's 140 snaps combined. They only played 70% of the available snaps because there were 200 snaps available for those two spots. They only played 140.
Math is not my strong suit.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's my point. So by that math, I think there are other people out there. You're not here for the math. It's fine. The people out there who understood that, here's the percent that's combined Styles and Hancock played in each game before Lathan Ransom got hurt. 70%, 44%, 62%, 51%, 53%, 69%, 81%, 74%. Then Lathan Ransom gets hurt, and now all of a sudden they need to have both of them on the field. First game he's hurt, they both played every single snap. So they played 100% of the snaps. 87%, 91%, 82%, 99% in the bowl game. So what I am saying is when Lathan Ransom wasn't there, they both played all the time. When Lathan Ransom was there against Notre Dame, Jordan Hancock played 21 snaps. And some of this, what happened was when they played pre-Ransom injury, when they played a running team, Jordan Hancock's snaps went down significantly. When they played a passing team, Sonny Styles' snaps went down significantly. Sonny Styles played 24 of 70 snaps against Penn State. I don't want that to happen again.
Yeah.
So I don't like your depth chart.
I don't like it either. I didn't enjoy putting
guess what you're getting right now? Preemptively angry. You don't like it either.
Preemptively worried, maybe, I think is more.
Okay.
Is more.
Well, that's no good. No. Preemptive anger allows you to get something out when it's unnecessary. Preemptive worry forces you to keep something in when it's possibly unnecessary. I am so pro preemptive anger and so anti preemptive worry. So please start shouting.
I don't like to shout though.
Okay. That's two shouters wouldn't make a good show.
Yeah. Right? No, I agree. Yeah.
So, but do you understand what I'm saying?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I'm in agreement with you. And like, so like when I do these depth chart projections, like I have thoughts on how I think things should look.
Yes,
but that's not entirely what I'm doing. Like I'm trying to be honest to what I think the coaching staff is thinking. And you know, we've heard from some people in the building that they think Sonny Styles will eventually be a linebacker. And I know you asked Sonny about that last year and he like kind of agreed with you. So I think we all think that's happening, but you know, is it going to happen this year? I'm inclined to believe yes, but I didn't want to reflect that in my first depth chart projection because I don't want people to like take that and run with it and say like Sonny's a linebacker now, because I would, you know, if I knew that, I would say that, but I don't know that to be a fact. So I didn't want to put stuff out there that like might be a half truth or mislead people.
Last year, the snaps among the safeties, Sonny Styles played 543. Lathan Ransom, who again played 8 games before he got hurt, played 486, was on the field basically every snap until he got hurt. Malik Hartford played 158. Jihad Carter played 124, and they're losing the 625 snaps of Josh Proctor, who played more than any other safety last year. So you would think there's opportunity here. I mean, again, just the idea to me of maybe depending what the look is Sonny more in the box? Is Sonny deeper? I just like a world where Malik Hartford's on the field, but maybe Sonny Styles is not, doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I'm not so sure. There's even a world where, and we saw this sometimes with the corners, could you play Jordan Hancock at deep safety? Like if you don't feel like you need 3 cover corners in the game and Sonny's down in the box, throw Jordan Hancock back there deep as the last line of defense.
Yeah, because I would say the same thing. Like, can you put Lathan Ransom at adjuster and just play Sonny at bandit, which is like,
yes,
at times is basically a linebacker position. My issue with that is all three of Jordan Hancock, Lathan Ransom, and Sonny Styles, I think, are much better closer to the ball, closer to the line of scrimmage. So I don't know if you're getting the best out of them. Like, you're getting your best players on the field, I think, clearly, if you do that. But I don't know if you're getting the best version of them if you do that. So that's what gives me a little bit of hesitancy.
So they have to work this out a little bit. And again, there are people who were very high on Malik Hartford last year as a true freshman, and there's no reason to think that he won't be a very good football player. It is a little. I mean, it's not light there, but a lot of the depth transferred. So now, Jihad Carter, like, if he's healthy, he's played a lot at Syracuse when he transferred here last year. Will he play at this level? Then some young guys, Jaden Bonsu and Cedric Hawkins, and some super young guys. And then Caleb Downs shows up in Columbus, all bets are off, right? Then it's like, okay, what are we doing here?
Yeah. Caleb Downs, who's not yet in the transfer portal, but Ohio
State in the transfer portal of our minds.
Yeah, so Ohio State would sure be interested if he was. So we'll see how that develops, because then he's your replacement for Josh Proctor. And then that doesn't address the Sonny Styles question necessarily, but yeah, that would be a heck of a replacement for Josh Proctor.
So Caleb Downs, huge Ohio State recruiting target, 5-star, picked Bama, led Bama in defensive snaps this year, was an unbelievable freshman All-American. Nick Saban loved him. Kirby Smart loved him. I have Georgia people in my timeline saying Caleb Downs is going to be there. So, like, if he goes in the portal, like, it's all going to break loose. So
did you take note of Nick Saban being asked by Reese Davis, like, the players he'd missed the most? And he said 2, and one of them was Caleb Downs.
Yeah. This guy's going to be spectacular. I mean, he is spectacular. There's no going to be. It's already there. So, okay. So that was what I was worried about. Again, too many good players. But I just, everybody really likes Sonny Styles and Jordan Hancock. And the thing was, last year, the whole conversation for Sonny Styles as a second-year college player, should have been his first year because he enrolled early, was like streamlined. That's all they were saying last spring. Again, it was sort of confusing. Like, is it a package? Is it just one position? Throw that out the door. Yeah. He could play 5 different positions on 5 different snaps, I think, at this point. I think he's an incredibly intelligent, like, very locked in, hardworking, get the job done kind of guy with a great football IQ from a football family, who was able to transition very quickly after enrolling a year early. And if you told him, first down, you're a deep safety, second down, you're a linebacker, and third down, you're locked up in coverage, I think he'd be like, yep, let's do this, right?
Yeah, and I think the door is open for that. Like, I'm not saying this to pin anything on Perry Iliano. I'm merely saying it because there's different perspective now with Matt Guerrieri. Maybe he views Sonny Styles differently and maybe would embrace that kind of idea. And I think no matter what happens with the defensive coaching staff, like, James Laurinaitis is going to have some more influence there. And I think he's a guy who sees that vision for Sonny Styles as well. So I do think him moving around some is certainly on the table.
Just not moving to the bench.
Just not to the bench. Yeah.
To the bench. Yeah. Would you have taken the safeties 4th or no?
Yes, I was between that and the position I'll take now, which is defensive tackle.
Oh, interesting. Okay. Defensive tackle 5.
No, I'm going to change it. Can I change it?
Yeah.
I'm going to change it?
Yeah.
Receiver.
Okay.
Yeah.
I had receiver 5, defensive tackle 6. I forgot the receivers along the way, because I think I was like, well, Marvin Harrison Jr. left. I guess they're not going to play receiver anymore. And then I was like, what am I doing? And I had to go back and I had to wedge them in between 4 and 6. And receiver is also my 5. So why are the receivers 5th for you?
Well, I want to ask you a question first, I guess, because I asked Austin this question and he and I see it a little differently. Projecting Jeremiah Smith as a starter, how does that hit you?
Hits me right where it counts in the best way. Gives me the tingles. How's that? Can I say that?
Yeah, because that's how it hits me. That's how it hits me.
Did it not give Austin the tingles?
No, Austin is just pragmatic, I think, when it comes to freshmen and like projecting roles for them.
What? No. No, the winter is not for freshman pragmatism. It's Dontre Wilson time. Let's do this. August is freshman pragmatism time.
Yeah.
Can Jeremiah Smith have 100 receptions? That's a true freshman time.
That's kind of where I am with it. And like his recruiting profile and attributes, like, they're the best that Ohio State has brought into the program, even for all the great players they've had at the position. So I'm a little okay getting potentially overhyped for the arrival of Jeremiah Smith. I think he is going to be a starter for this offense this year. And I think the one thing that's a little unclear to me in terms of like figuring out how everything fits together is what they're going to do with Emeka Egbuka. Like, is he going to stay mostly in the slot like he's been throughout his entire career? I think he's not like a 90% slot snap guy, but I think he's like around 70% for his career. If they're going to move him outside some more, then like, what does that look like? Because I don't know. I think, it's sort of interchangeable now. You can kind of play anybody outside, inside if you really want to, but I do think that changes the picture if Emeka's going to play outside some. But I think Emeka is a first-round receiver who didn't have the production of one last year because he was hurt. So like I like him coming back as like a leader of this room. I still believe wholeheartedly that Carnell Tate is going to be a star. And I think Jeremiah Smith is, and I'm stating the obvious here, is the best receiver prospect that Ohio State has brought in over the last couple of years when they've been the best at bringing in receiver talent. And then you have like Brandon Inniss too, who's I think going to be at worst their fourth receiver. And like it gets a little hairy, I guess, after that. But the top four, I think I believe in pretty strongly, even if there's a decent amount of inexperience there. I think it's still going to be a very dynamic group that has some versatility to it. And now that we know that Emeka's coming back to kind of like lead that otherwise inexperienced group, I think they're in a pretty good spot.
So again, if you do you think it could be that the top four that it's Emeka doesn't leave the field, but maybe he slides between slot and outside. And
Yes.
then the other two spots are taken up by Carnell Tate, Jeremiah Smith, and Brandon Inniss in some kind of rotational basis that is based partly on where Emeka is lining up on that play.
I think so. I think and Austin and I discussed this, so I apologize for repeating it, I guess, but 2019, KJ Hill played like 670 snaps, I think it was. And then Chris Olave is a sophomore, Ben Victor is a veteran, and then a true freshman, Garrett Wilson, played between like 450 and like 510 snaps. So like effectively the same amount of snaps. I think that's what's on the table here. It's just a matter of like Garrett Wilson never started a game that year. He just played starter reps. Is that what Jeremiah Smith is, or will he actually be a starter? I think that's the question.
Okay. And I do think, I don't mean, you have to play the best players, but I don't think you can go to Florida, sign the number one receiver in the class, not know whether he's going to stick with you or not in the final 90 seconds before he makes his announcement, spend an extra 6 hours making sure he sends in his paperwork, and then be like, yeah, good luck on the third team, young man.
Right. Have fun on special teams. Yeah.
Yeah. There's a little bit of a portal reality here, which is like, not that you would prioritize like keeping a freshman happy over winning, but it certainly seems like you could keep the freshman happy while he's helping you win in a massive way. So like, What are we doing here?
Yeah. And I think too, like there are certain positions where I think like the barrier for entry is a little less restrictive for true freshmen, and receivers one of them.
And by the way, there's a lot of snaps open here. Marvin Harrison Jr. 649 at receiver last year. Julian Fleming 552. Xavier Johnson 248.
Mm-hmm.
So there is humongous opportunity. Like it's not like Jeremiah Smith is not blocked by anybody.
Nope.
Like we're talking about Jeremiah Smith in concert with two sophomores, Brandon Inniss and Carnell Tate, and Brandon Inniss barely played. Like it's not Chris Olave like that you're trying to shove aside for Jeremiah Smith.
Yeah, and like the veteran, like Jaden Ballard is a veteran in that room, but when there's been opportunity to let Jaden Ballard play a little more, it doesn't really feel like Ohio State's always embraced that, and I'm comfortable reading into that. And then like the guys in the class ahead of Carnell Tate and Brandon Inniss have already been jumped by them. So there's no. I would even put Mylan Graham. He's not in the same boat as Jeremiah Smith, but I think both these incoming freshman receivers have an opportunity to put themselves like squarely in the top 6 at receiver next year.
Jaden Ballard played 55 snaps at receiver last year. Brandon Inniss, as a true freshman, played 32. Like it just Ballard, Jeremiah Smith. I think you are correct that if you're going to list a depth chart, I think the 3 receivers that should be listed are Ibuka, Tate, and Smith. And then we acknowledge and tip the cap that we believe Brandon Ennis will be a large part of that group. But I want Smith as a starter. So I'll take the defensive tackle 6th.
Okay.
So we are in lockstep so far on the order of the top 6 then?
Yes, we are.
Defensive tackle, so you're losing the snaps of Mike Hall, who played 413 snaps last year. You have Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton, who project on your depth chart as the starters. 645 snaps for Tyleik Williams last year, Ty Hamilton 350. And then, I mean, it was a 3-man rotation, basically, last year between those guys. Hall, Hamilton, and Williams. You lose one of the 3, so you have 2 guys back. And then it's Hero Kanu and Tywone Malone, who really just did not play. Hero Kanu had a brief little thing at the end of the year where he played 90 snaps total on defense, where it's like, okay, maybe this guy's getting to a place where he can give you 10 snaps in the Michigan game or something. But this, having the defensive tackles here 6th among the 10 position groups we're going to do, is based on Tyleik Williams and Ty Hamilton being very good, being very experienced. And then there's there's inexperience in the guys behind them.
Yeah, you need more than 2, right? It's the same conversation we're having about defensive end. Like I think Tyleik Williams played too many snaps last year. I don't want to see him play. What he played like 700? Did he play this year?
645.
Yeah. So like that, I would like to see that number come down a little bit, which would require some of these younger guys to step up. And like I like the depth, the younger depth pieces, or at least like I'm optimistic that they're going to be pretty good. Like Tywone Malone's going into his 4th year as a college football player. I know he's only been here for 1 year, but he should be ready to go. If he's not, then I think that's an issue. I like what Hero Kanu can give you as a bigger body in the middle. I like Caden McDonald quite a bit as like he's built more like Tyleik Williams. I think with similar athleticism. Like, is Jason Moore the second guy ready to help you out? Second year guy ready to help you out? So there's a lot of question marks there beyond the top 2, but I not enough to make it necessarily a position of concern for me. But I do think we need to acknowledge that there's not proven depth here, and I do think you need proven depth at defensive tackle if you're trying to win a national championship, and we're not so certain that Ohio State has that just yet.
We certainly lived in a world, I think, previously where you thought they need six defensive tackles. You're rotating both spots 3 deep. Last year they played 3. And there was opportunity. Like if Tywone Malone or Hero Kanu would have demanded to play, they would have played. They weren't being blocked. I think like 3 is not ideal. 3 for 2 spots. And so people were like, there are a lot of people jacked up about Tywone Malone and that transfer, and then it had 0 impact in the 2023 season. It doesn't mean it's not going to have an impact this year, but if he was more ready last year, he would have played, right?
Yeah, and I thought he was going to be. Like he was going into the year, I had him as like a dark horse contributor, and that never came to fruition.
Yeah. So they've got their 2, but they have to play 3. They probably should play 4, and they've played 5 and 6 at times. And right now we're at 2 and Kanu. Oh, that's
I like that. Yeah.
2 and Kanu, like a pair and a spare. 2 and Kanu.
Yeah.
And then whatever else happens, happens. All right. So I took the defensive tackles 6th. Who you want to take 7?
I'll take quarterback.
We are in total agreement again.
Yeah. Like I think you could take linebacker maybe. But I'm going to take quarterback here with the 7th spot. And I don't like the quarterback being 7th to me is not necessarily a reflection of them not being good enough at this position. I think they're going to be okay with Will Howard. And we did a long Will Howard show. People can go find that if they want to know, our deeper thoughts on Will Howard. I guess my shorthand for him.
And then you guys had Will Howard on. You had Will Howard.
We had Will Howard. We had him on a daily on Monday, which I thought was a good interview. So you can go find that.
Did he say he had watched the Kings of Columbus episode on himself?
No, he didn't. Byrne was of the opinion that Will had listened to some stuff, but I don't know that I picked up on that necessarily. But he's a sharp kid, so I think he understands, or sharp man. I guess he's like 24.
But it sounds sharp kid is a thing you can say. Sharp man sounds a little weird.
He's a sharp adult man. Yeah. That does sound weird. I think like all the tools are there for Will Howard to be a very good quarterback for this offense. It's just like he's got to get there. He's got to show more than I think he's shown at Kansas State, and there were definitely some highs there that I really like. But I think all the other positions we talked about so far just feel just like like more known commodities, slightly known more commodities. But I still like the ceiling at quarterback. I think, based off what we know now and a lot of projection baked into it, I think it makes sense to take quarterback here.
So we are primarily making these picks based off the starters or based off your depth chart. Devin Brown would be number 2 right now. Just shooting the breeze. Do you think Devin Brown will stick around if at the end of spring practice it is definitive that Will Howard is the starting quarterback?
I would be surprised by that. But I say that because I would be surprised by any third-year quarterback who hasn't yet started being in a similar position.
Agreed. Are you 1,000% comfortable with the backup quarterback in 2024 being Lincoln Kienholz and or Aaron Noland?
100% no. I think like reasonably comfortable, like 65-ish% comfortable.
And it doesn't mean I don't think like they're short in that scenario compared to other programs. I think a lot of teams in the portal world have trouble having faith in their backup quarterbacks because the guy who in years past was your backup quarterback is now out the door to try to start for somebody else. So it's hard to have an experienced, very good backup quarterback. So maybe they would wind up in a world if Devin Brown decided to leave, maybe again, they'd wind up in a Tristan Gebbia world where you get a guy who has played but is not looking to be a starter anymore, would come to Ohio State to be the backup. I think that could be an interesting situation. Or maybe you just roll and say, listen, we got a second-year guy and a first-year guy that we think are supremely talented, and we'll get them ready. So, but that's at least a little part of it of why even like I think if maybe anybody was in a world where like, maybe why isn't quarterback higher? It's like, well, it's not doubting Will Howard, but also Will Howard's not Caleb Williams. We're not trying to blow smoke here. Like we have to be realistic about this. We will do a show on Kings of the North sooner than later where we run through the quarterback situations for all the Northern teams and rank the best ones. It makes me curious to see where we will rank Will Howard among the 28 Northern quarterbacks in a world where J.J. McCarthy is going to the NFL draft, where Michael Penix at Washington is gone and Bo Nix is gone, and there's a lot of change over there. Will Howard could be something less than a sure thing and very high on the list of best Northern quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, best in the country, too, if you want to extrapolate it. There's a lot of the freedom of movement for players creates a lot of quarterback uncertainty around the country. And Ohio State is in that boat, I suppose, but I also think there's reason for Ohio State fans to feel good about what it could be this year.
Yeah, there's a couple like Carson Beck is back at Georgia. Quinn Ewers decided to stay at Texas. There's certainly Jalen Milroe will be back at Alabama. So there's certainly
he transferred, didn't he?
What? Jalen Milroe transferred?
I think so, didn't he?
What? It's in the South. I don't care. I forgot. He said that when Caleb DeBoer showed up, he like shouted to the crowd, "I'm staying."
Oh, it was a fake. I got duped by a fake account.
But also, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. You should not be listening to fake or real news from the South. Doesn't matter.
Yeah, but also like Kalen DeBoer knows that he needs a quarterback who can throw the ball, so I don't think he'll be their starting quarterback next year.
Yeah. Also, Alabama's running back 2019 Indiana, so congrats on that.
Good for them. Yeah.
We'll play a game also. I think so. We'll play a game on Kings of the North coming up that we'll call this is a bad name for a game. Which current Northern team will have its entire coaching staff stolen by a Southern team 5 years from now? We'll play that game.
That really rolls off the tongue. Yeah.
Plinko. Which Northern? Yeah, I'll work on it. Okay. I'm good on the abbreviations though today, so we'll get there. Linebacker is 8th. You agree?
Yep, I do.
So this is the only place where like they're kind of rolling in all new starters because Tommy Eichenberg and Steele Chambers, 650 snaps for Steele, 607 for Tommy this year. They certainly were the starters. Cody Simon, by the end of the year with Tommy Eichenberg's injuries, was like a co-starter, but he still played almost half as many snaps as those two guys. They're both over 600. Cody Simon, 374. Your projection is Cody Simon, CJ Hicks. CJ Hicks, 75 defensive snaps this year.
Yeah, or it could be Cody Simon, Sonny Styles. And then I don't
want to do this either. I don't want to pit Sonny Styles against Jordan Hancock, and I don't want to pit Sonny Styles against CJ Hicks.
So you want CJ Hicks and Sonny Styles to be the starting linebackers?
Now I sound like Ari. I just want to throw away all the very good veteran players and just play the 5 stars who haven't seen the field yet.
Yeah, it's tough. It's difficult because like Cody Simon, I thought played really well last year when he was in there.
He really did.
He was, in my
really
opinion,
did.
their best linebacker in 2023.
I agree.
So and like he's
a top 100 recruit back 5 years ago. Yeah,
and like he's a smart guy. He's a veteran in this defense now. Like I think you need that in the middle of your defense, and maybe there's a timeshare thing that could happen there. I don't know, but I think Cody Simon probably needs to be this team starting Mike linebacker next year. That's how I feel now. Maybe I'll feel differently after the spring. So it does create a little bit of a logjam there if you think that Sonny needs to move down. But yeah, I think at the moment it's Cody and CJ Hicks taking over for Steel Chambers at the will. And then, you have Gabe Powers there in the same class as CJ Hicks to maybe be the third guy, I guess. Like Reed Carrico's gone. Court Williams, I'm not expecting much from him, unfortunately, with his injury history. Yeah. Arvell Reese, I think, is interesting as a second-year guy. Is he ready to play? I don't know, but he's got athleticism that's off the charts. And then they did bring in Nigel Glover, who we don't talk about a ton last year, late from Northwestern after Northwestern lost Pat Fitzgerald. So maybe he's ready to do something too. So maybe the depth here can be okay. It's a little bit of a hard position or difficult position to really like peg down for me because I don't know about potential moving parts with guys like Sonny and CJ and maybe like an Arvell Reese.
Arvell Reese is hard. I mean, it's like one of these things again, like Arvell Reese is kind of a linebacker, kind of an edge, right? Mitchell Melton was that and hasn't found a role yet. So like they've got to figure some of this stuff out. I would like to see a get after it, let it rip off ball linebacker. So whether that's CJ Hicks or Sonny Styles, I don't know. But like a game wrecker, a guy that like when you try to run wide, just triggers and blows up a block and makes a tackle. Or, you throw a bubble screen and he evades 2 guys and tackles. You know what I mean? Like just a blitzes, just Ryan Shazier, just wrecks stuff. And I do think, we talked about this on the talent discussion that we had about did they have enough talent in 2023. I think when you have a veteran defense, and we didn't talk about this specifically then, when you have so many veterans back, the idea of the 10 of us are going to do our job. Every play, just do your job. The 10 of us are going to do that. Or maybe the 9 of us are going to do that. By design, the 9 of us will make sure everything's covered. And then Sonny and CJ go get the ball.
Yeah.
Right? Like when you have more backing and guys you believe in, then maybe you can let other guys take more chances. And I think the defense is so good, it's now at the point of let the massively talented dudes take some chances and blow stuff up. So,
well, that is the Jack conversation. That is what Jim Knowles wants that position to be. Except
it's not. Now I'm preemptively mad again. It's not. What is it? When? Who? When? How? What?
I mean,
when? How?
How? It's by doing what you just said. When? It should be now.
And should it be CJ Hicks?
Yeah.
But here's what I don't want to happen. I don't want that role to be a 15 out of 80 snaps a game role, and that's the only thing that CJ Hicks plays. That's what makes me nervous about CJ Hicks and the Jack. Oh, he's going to be in this let it rip position, and I'm going to tell you the 11% of the time he's on the field, watch out, baby. I don't want that.
No, I don't necessarily want that either, and I'm speaking for Jim Knowles. I don't think that's what he wants either. It was his base defense when he was at Oklahoma State.
Okay, so
that position was always on the field.
Now that you've riled me up, you and Jim Knowles riling me up. So show me how it works in a significant way, personnel and alignment in 2024.
Well, the thing that complicates it is the return of both Jack and JT. It's like Ohio State has recruited to be a 4-down program, forever, and it still is that. And I'm not saying those guys coming back is a bad thing because it's not. But that is probably the holdup, I guess. It's like if you if you do that, and then you're kind of playing more of like a 3-4 with a float player, which is the Jack, then like who are your three? And I think the three could just be Tyleek, Jack, and JT, right? And then
could they be?
I think you could, yeah.
Okay.
And then
a float?
And then the float player could be, I think it could be CJ or Sonny.
Now,
I think they're both, I think they are both destined to play on the line of scrimmage.
Can CJ be the will linebacker when he's not the float player? And can Sonny be a safety when he's not the float player?
Yeah, I love the idea of having them both on the field and you don't know what position they're playing.
Now we're getting somewhere.
Yeah.
Now I feel like you're teasing me. Do you think that's going to happen?
Absolutely not.
So now we're taking a defensive tackle off.
It's January.
We're playing a 3-man front with Jack, JT, and Tyleek, and of course Ty Hamilton will have his time in there, of course.
You still play other defensive linemen, yeah.
And then Sonny and CJ are both on the field together. But are you also putting another linebacker in there? So if CJ's doing this, are you now playing Cody Simon and like Gabe Powers at linebacker?
I'm playing Cody and Sonny at linebacker. And then Jordan Hancock at safety with Lathan Ransom and Malik Harford / Caleb Downs.
And so down to down, Sonny Styles and CJ Hicks are both on the field and sharing will linebacker and the Jack. And you never know exactly whose assignment is what or what side of the field they're going to be on. And they're just roaming and attacking like a pair of velociraptors.
Yes.
Because they work in pairs.
They do move in herds. Yeah.
And the other 9 guys are like, we've got this. We're going to do exactly what we're supposed to do at a very highly talented, highly intelligent level. And we're letting the 5 stars roam.
Mm-hmm.
Clever girl.
Can you get behind that?
Why are you doing this? No, everybody. Now, everyone's preemptively mad now. We're going to replay this. Can you formulate a question to Jim Knowles? Maybe we could bring it, roll in a chalkboard. Can you formulate a question and show him this defense and say, can you do this, please?
Yeah, I'll just diagram all 11 spots. Here's CJ. Here's Sonny. What do you think?
Yeah. And everybody is a little X or a little O, but they're velociraptor.
They're velociraptor
heads.
It's just the talon, like the talon that sticks out a little farther than the rest of the, yeah.
And then we could have CJ and Sonny.
You could even call the position the talon.
Or the raptor.
Well,
one's the talon and one's the raptor.
Yeah.
We got to work on the names.
Okay.
We got to get better names. Jim Knowles is a very good defensive coordinator. He's terrible at names. And then we bring Sonny and CJ in, and they're wearing those inflatable dinosaur costumes. And as you're diagramming it, the 2 dinosaurs come down the 2 aisles in the team room. And Jim Knowles is like, what is this? And then Sonny and CJ jump out and endorse your plan.
I like the production value there too. That's nice.
And Berm has the camera rolling, so we're all good.
Yeah, we're great. Yeah,
get it on the podcast. Yeah. Now I'm so mad. Now I'm so mad thinking about how that's not the world we actually live in. It's just Landis as well.
I think it is. There's a non-zero chance. I think that we could get Jim Knowles on for maybe an off-season episode and just present our idea to him and see how he reacts.
You know how he always, like, it really has fallen into this thing the last couple of media sessions where he says, you know, you ladies and you gentlemen really know a lot about football. You're just great media members. And he would end that.
I don't think he would.
You think? Okay.
I think he'd love it.
Do you think that we maybe would lose you to a GA position at Ohio State once you diagram this?
No, those positions don't pay very well. Unless you're
You're making the bucks, man, here. Where Landis is living large.
Yeah.
All right. Who you picking 9th?
These feel like great options. I guess I'll pick tight end.
Yeah.
So we can save the O-line discussion for
so last. We could completely agree on every 1 through 10. Yeah. We completely agreed. Tight ends are 9th. Will Kazmarek. Your projected starter? Transfer from Ohio.
Yes, but it's like it's a very soft projection because part of the reason why I take tight end over offensive line is like the Jelani Thurman factor. And if he is the starter in 2024, I don't think anybody would be surprised by that. He did not play really at all this year. I think it's total snaps, offense, and special teams. He played 30. Jelani Thurman did
24 on offense.
24 on offense. It was 6 on special teams. They actually burned his red shirt by playing him in the Cotton Bowl, which again I don't have much of a problem with, but it is interesting to kind of choose to do that.
Show me year 5 of Jelani Thurman in Columbus.
Yeah, right. It's not going to happen. So I think I'm fine. But it's like if you're going to play in 5 games, then you should play in 10 games. And I don't think they embraced the opportunity to play him as much as they could have, especially it was like Cade Stover was a little banged up. But anyway, I digress. I do think there's a potential for Jelani to start here. I think I think it's Merrick. Maybe it's Cass Merrick. I actually we should
have him on.
We should get straightened out on that. You know, he was a starting or part-time starting, I guess, tight end at Ohio.
496 snaps. So that's a good amount.
It's a step up, and you know, it's not teams aren't hitting a batting 1,000 on up transfers from Group of 5 conferences to come play in the Power 5. So it's not a guarantee that his play translates. And obviously, I think it needs to more than translate. I think he probably needs to be a little better than he was at Ohio, even if there was reason to like some of what you saw from him there. I don't think that G. Scott Jr. is like tight end 1 in this offense. I think, however this shakes out, he is like the complement or maybe the 3rd tight end here. But between the incoming transfer and Jelani Thurman, I do think Ohio State could end up being okay at tight end, but it's not the strongest position, certainly.
Cade Stover, 615 snaps last year, so you're losing that. G. Scott, 353. Will K, as we said, 496 at Ohio. Jelani Thurman, 24 on offense. Will, 28 targets, 22 catches at Ohio. Mm-hmm. So, like, not, you know, they weren't throwing him the ball a ton. Are you possibly envisioning a world where they're in 12 and Will K is the blocker and Jelani Thurman's the throw the ball to him tight end?
Yeah, I think that they need like a Luke Farrell type, and I think that perhaps that Will K could be that.
Yes, and then Thurman is Ruckert plus.
Is Ruckert, yeah.
That was a great tight end setup back then.
It was awesome,
and they have not been able to replicate it since because Farrell and Ruckert really covered the bases on everything they wanted there. And again, I mean, I do think as much as we like the 4-man receiver idea with a Mecca at the top and then Jeremiah Smith, Carnell Tate, and Brandon Ennis, you're not at a place where it's like, oh my God, we have to have 3 receivers on the field every snap. I mean, if there's something here where you can get something going with 12 and how the fact that they have 2 workhorse running backs and a quarterback that we believe is going to be involved in the designed run game because he has been, does that lend them wanting to be in 12 more often and making sure they need to have? Is that why Will K is here? Because they need a tight end that they can 1,000% rely on as a blocker, and maybe neither G. Scott nor Jelani Thurman are there yet?
Yeah, I think possibly. Just generally, they need to get better at blocking from the tight end position because they've been pretty bad the last 2 years. So that's part of it. But I could see them, you know, having an uptick in 12 personnel. I actually don't know what it was off the top of my head last year. Less than I thought it would be, and I think it's because the blocking just wasn't there for them to live in it. And I think they could be in a better spot for that next year. Yeah, I think you could maybe factor Bennett Christian into that too. Like he didn't play last year because he was suspended, but like he was a blocking tight end in high school. I think came to Ohio State pretty physically mature. And I don't really have much of a reason to think that he's lost that. He's not played really at all, and he's missed an entire season. So maybe that's putting too much on him. But I think he could be a sneaky surprise, perhaps blocking option for them if everything breaks right for him this offseason.
We should probably do this on Kings of Columbus the week before spring football actually starts. Top 10. Can't wait to see what this guy looks like preparing to freak out with excitement about him based off the first practice of spring football. Is Jelani Thurman the number 1 pick?
Jeremiah Smith's probably number 1 pick.
Okay.
But Jelani Thurman's up there. Yeah.
Yeah, Jeremiah Smith's probably a good call. Okay. Guess what? Guess who's last? We'll come back and pick them after this. Doug and Bill back. Hey, if you want to be a tech subscriber, it's a lovely idea in the offseason. Keeps Ohio State on your mind, in your pocket. when there aren't games to be thinking about every week. 2-week free trials, 614-662-4509. You send the text to that number. You get back a link to sign up. You can test it out for 2 weeks, see what Berm has to say, what Austin has to say, what Landis has to say, what I have to say. You like it, you don't like it, maybe not now, maybe I'll wait for later, it's fine. But you can try it. If you've never tried it, you can try it for 2 weeks and see what you think. And again, it's kind of a different deal in the off season than during the season, but I think both have value. We wouldn't try to sell it to you. We wouldn't do it. If it stunk, we wouldn't sell it to you. 614-662-4509. Offensive line is last. We agreed on everything here. Why do you agree that the offensive line is last? And why don't you run through the 5? Well, first, before the names, why are they last in our draft?
Because they weren't good enough last year. And I think it falls in line with the point you made earlier that merely having guys return does not guarantee success.
Yeah.
Although, we can talk about it. I think there's reason to believe the left side of the line could be better than it was last year. And then there's just too many question marks on the right side of the line. I think we know what the left side's going to look like with Josh Simmons at left tackle, Donovan Jackson at left guard. I think we know what center is going to look like with Seth McLaughlin, the incoming Alabama transfer. And then I really have no idea what the right side of the offensive line is going to look like. It could go a couple different ways. I don't know that any would surprise me, but regardless of how it goes, it's really uncertain, I think, at this point. More uncertain than I think anything else on the roster at the moment is what the right side of this offensive line is going to look like.
So your projection is left tackle Josh Simmons, returning starter. Donovan Jackson, left guard, returning starter. Seth McLaughlin, Alabama transfer, replacing Carson Hinsman, who is still on the roster.
Mm-hmm.
You have Josh Fryer, last year's right tackle, at right guard. And you have Luke Montgomery, who was a very highly rated recruit, as a second-year player in 2024, taking over as the starting right tackle. When we think about the guys who played last year, basically Josh Simmons, Josh Fryer, Donovan Jackson, and Matt Jones, who was the only guy departing the team on the offensive line, played every single snap that mattered. And then Carson Hinsman played every single snap that mattered until he was benched for the bowl game. They were unbelievably healthy on an underperforming offensive line last year. And among the things that matter the most and are talked about the least for any successful football team at any level, offensive line health, I think, is number one on that list. And if you have 2 or 3 injuries to your projected starter on the offensive line, it could absolutely blow up your season. And they were healthy last year and still not good. So that is like another thing. When we get to the depth here, right, you're losing Matt Jones and his 819 snaps. You basically had all these guys who played. Hinsman, for the moment, would be in the mix as a depth piece behind McLaughlin after being a starter last year. Enoch Vamache played 100 snaps last year. Tegra Shabola played 32. Jacob James, who left, right? He left, right? He played 6.
Yep.
Vic Cutler left. He played 21. Luke Montgomery, who you're projecting as a starter, played 44 snaps last year. George Fitzpatrick played 6. Zed Mahalski played 21. Like, they didn't have to play these guys, but they didn't play these guys. So when you have 4 of the 5 guys are back, Jones is the only one gone. We're already moving Hinsman out of the starting lineup, but we just don't know. Like, nobody else was sort of forced into action. Enoch Vamache played right guard in the Cotton Bowl, but you don't have him projected as a starter.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think anybody did. There's a lot of unknown here.
And too much to be to be comfortable. Excuse me. I think there could be some pretty good competition on the right side with like Josh Fryer, Luke Montgomery. I'd throw Tegra Shabola in there. I would throw Carson Hinsman with a move to guard in there as well. Like that's 3 one top 100 player in Luke Montgomery, 2 other borderline top 100 players in Carson Hinsman and Tegra Shabola, and then like a veteran guy who's now got a season starting under his belt in Josh Fryer. Hinsman and Shabola going to Shabola going into 3rd years, Montgomery going into a 2nd year. Like that feels okay to me. Like the idea of Luke Montgomery like moving up into a starting role as a 2nd-year guy who was pretty highly rated, I think is okay. And then I like Tegra Shabola too. I think he maybe is more suited for guard, but even with all that, like it's still just it's really uncertain. I don't know that Tegra or Luke have played enough for you to feel super confident that they're ready to start. And then like Josh Fryer's back half of the season was so bad that I don't know if you're confident in him being able to start moving forward either. I think moving to guard would help him, but I don't think it's like a guarantee he's suddenly going to take a massive step forward as a player, because he looked really lost, I thought, in the second half of the season. And I don't know if that's wearing down because you're playing more than you're used to, or like teams kind of figuring you out a little bit. I'm inclined to think it's more of the latter. But either way, it wasn't good enough. And I don't know what they're going to do there on that side. And I don't think they're wrong. Like anybody who wanted Ohio State to address this kind of head on in the transfer portal in the first window, I think that's probably the right reaction. But now it seems like they're just going to kind of play this out with who they have, see how the dust settles after the spring, and then address it in the portal if they have to.
Which is where they were a year ago.
Yeah.
Right? Like that they didn't get a tackle in the first portal window, and then they wound up getting a tackle in kind of like the desperation portal window because they figured out what they had in spring wasn't good enough. The idea here, so Tegra Shabola and Luke Montgomery, Tegra as a second-year guy last year, Luke as a first-year guy, were both sort of like at the edge of the mix. They were second-team guys, and it was like, I don't know, they're looking for everything. Could you start a true freshman? Could Tegra be... They are significantly bigger factors with a year. Like, I almost feel like to expect Tegra Shabola to start in year 3, to expect Luke Montgomery to start in year 2, there would be nothing unusual about that. No. I don't think you'd be reaching here where it felt like if you were to have asked either of those two guys, all right, like we need you, it would have been a reach last year. Yeah. So what percent would you put on like the right tackle not being Josh Fryer? That maybe Josh Fryer is the starting guard, but like that he will not be the starting right tackle again.
67%.
Okay. So like a 2/3, like yeah. Whether that's like they would be open to anybody on the roster who wants to come seize it. But then also they would be open in this second portal window where they could be adding a guy. I would love to see them add a tackle. Did that Texas A&M guy sign? Chase Bastancis?
He went back to A&M. I think there were some complications there with NIL contracts that he had to go back to A&M.
Oh, great. Lovely.
Yeah. It's a great business we have here.
Wonderful. Had a non-compete.
That's right.
Have you guys talked about the AD on any of the shows?
We have not, no.
Yeah. We didn't talk about it today either. I wonder if he has a non-compete. I have to go back to Texas A&M. Sorry. Ross, is it Bjork? Is it Bjork?
It's Bjork. Like the Icelandic singer, yeah. Bjork. Yeah.
Ross Bjork, reportedly the leading candidate to be the new athletic director at Ohio State. So I texted out some opinions about that. I don't feel educated enough to have like a super long discussion about it. And we're not going to, even if I did, we're not going to cram it in the last 20 minutes of a 10-part discussion about the 2024 position group draft. But we're aware of that. We'll talk about it sooner than later because it needs to be talked about. And by the way, they might be naming him rather soon. And like the best thing for us, also, we don't care. It would be like to make the new AD mad right off the bat. Be like, I don't know about this guy. Yeah. But if we think it, that's what we'll say because we can't live any other way. All right. Are you surprised that we completely agreed, or is this sort of like this is the order? This is everyone's order.
I think this would probably be most people's orders. There's maybe a little bit of like defensive end safety. Maybe you can flip flop. Defensive tackle receiver. Maybe you could flip flop. But I think mostly this would be the way of it. Can I ask you an offensive line question before we get out?
Yeah. Want me to get preemptively angry again? Yeah, go ahead.
If the starting right side is Tegra Shabola and Luke Montgomery,
I'm good.
And like Josh Fryer's just like is like the sixth offensive lineman,
good
swing man. Yeah,
I'm good.
I think it'd be okay with that too.
Like again, it's
I don't know Josh Fryer would be okay with that, but I'd be okay with it.
Are they? Yeah, I mean that's like those are homegrown second and third year big time recruit offensive lineman. Like that's actually probably how it should work. Like that doesn't feel out of place. The reason that I was freaking out last year was because their tackle solutions were a San Diego State transfer and a guy who was recruited in the 500s, who typically you don't ask guys like that to ever be a starter at Ohio State. Mm-hmm. So So I don't mean to be only focused on what guys are when they come in, but like if it feels like a plan, this was a plan. And now the guy has to live up to the plan. And some don't, some do. Some it's on the coaches for not developing him well enough. Some of it it's on the player, right? We understand that. But it was so off of the plan a year ago. A lot of this is more in the plan. And by the way, where they didn't have a plan, right? The ideal plan for them would have been Luke Whippler stays last year is the starting center. And then Seth McLaughlin's not here now because they're like third year Carson Hinsman. We're good. They wound up going a little early to second year Carson Hinsman, and it didn't work out. But like, I also sort of understand why that was the case because they, I think, legitimately were surprised that Luke Whippler left. I don't think they projected him as a 3-year and out guy when they recruited him. And I don't think even in the moment they thought he was a 3-year and out guy. So they didn't do anything to get that other than get Vic Cutler, and that was never going to be a thing. So, like, but I understand why they fell short there. The tackle situations of last year, there was no surprises anywhere, right? And they were still felt like grasping. So this Tegra Shabola and Luke Montgomery starting on the right side in 2024 does not feel like grasping to me. That doesn't mean that it's guaranteed to work, but it feels like more okay. Bing, bang, boom. This is what we expected.
Yeah, a couple high 4-star in-state guys, Tegra for 3 years and Luke now in his second year, just like developing in your program and ready to go. Maybe a touch early for Luke, but I don't think so. I think if you're a top 100 or borderline top 100 guy starting as a sophomore on the offensive line, I think that's fine. That doesn't feel out of the ordinary to me.
Yeah. So we went cornerbacks 1, running backs 2, defensive ends 3, safeties 4, receivers 5, defensive tackle 6, quarterback 7, linebacker 8, tight end 9, and offensive line 10. So now we will run through again. This is the depth chart just to wrap your head around it. Now that you've gone through this whole show with us, we'll do the offensive depth chart first, and that is the transfer Will Howard at quarterback. So that's one change. Offensive line, Josh Simmons, left tackle, Donovan Jackson, left guard, Seth McLaughlin, the Alabama transfer at center. That's change number 2. Josh Fryer at right guard, Luke Montgomery at right tackle. You've got to fill in for Matt Jones one way or the other. That would be change number 3. Will Kazmarek, potentially, we're not sure. At tight end, you're filling in for Cade Stover. That's change number 4. The running backs, Travion Henderson, and you're adding Quinshon Judkins, like that's just riches in the backfield.
Yeah. And
then at receiver, Emeka Ibuka, Carnell Tate, and Jeremiah Smith. That is 2 other changes. So that is, I'm like counting on my fingers, that is 6 new guys, Landis, on the offense out of 11 projected starters, right? You have a new center. You have a new right guard / right tackle. You have a new tight end. You have 2 new receivers, and you have a new quarterback. So while we're anticipating, man, like they're running it back, that's 6 new guys of the 11 starters on offense.
It is, yeah. That's the question mark of this team. Like, all those pieces come together for the offense to be what it needs to be. I think in some of those cases you're upgrading, right? I think Seth McLaughlin over Carson Hinsman is an upgrade at center. I believe that Will Howard will be an upgrade over Kyle McCord at quarterback. Obviously, you're not upgrading over Marvin Harrison Jr., but I do think you stand to upgrade over like Julian Fleming and Xavier Johnson at receiver with pick your 2 younger receivers to take over there. So it's not, it's like you said, they're not fully running it back on offense. There are still pretty big lingering questions there, but I think enough pieces to excite you as long as I get offensive line figured out.
Yeah. All right. Defensive projected starters from Bill Landis. You're bringing everybody back on the defensive line. It's Jack Sawyer and JT Tuimoloau at defensive end, Ty Hamilton and Tyleek Williams at defensive tackle. Mike Hall was like a co-starter there with them, but these are 4 returning starters on the defensive line. At linebacker, 2 new starters because you're losing Steele Chambers and Tommy Eichenberg. We're putting in Cody Simon and CJ Hicks. At corner, same 3 guys back. Davison Igbinosun and Denzel Burke on the outside, Jordan Hancock at slot corner. And then again, we have 12 starters on the defense because it's just how you're maneuvering safety and corner. Lathan Ransom, Sonny Styles, returning starters, and then Malik Hartford in for Josh Proctor. So really, the only, like, it's 8 of 11 starters back, basically, because again, like Mike Hall, he really is starter quality, but you're really kind of filling in with the guys who are already there. You're replacing Josh Proctor, Steele Chambers, and Tommy Eichenberg with Malik Hartford, Cody Simon, and CJ Hicks. How do you feel about that depth chart, Bill?
Good, because even like Cody Simon was like a quasi starter last year by the end of the year, and like he's played a ton of football. So yes, you're replacing him, but it's almost like replacing a starter with a starter. And then like the question mark is free safety. I think is Malik Hartford ready? Didn't always look like he was when he was put in his spots as a true freshman, which he's a true freshman. I don't think that's unheard of, and I'm pretty high on him, so I think he'll be okay. And then CJ Hicks is like time to go. So you're moving 5-star guy into a starting spot. You're moving a like top 70 player Malik Hartford into a starting spot. I think you feel pretty good about that.
Really, you're looking at your top 12 guys on defense. Only 2 of them you don't know anything about, really.
Yeah.
It's like you just said, it's Hartford and it's Hicks. And it's saying like, okay, we're not sure what these guys are going to be like. Everybody else has played a ton and played at a very high level. So that will wrap us up here. Again, no whatcha on this show. Find that on Kings of the North, separate podcast channel, separate YouTube channel. We'll be talking about what we think about food, what we think about TV and movies, what we think about life. But Bill and I are joined by Ari Wasserman for that. So we are sort of waiting, Bill, for what else may happen with coaching changes.
Yeah.
And that if there's something that pops, if there's some news this week, we will be back with another Kings of Columbus. If that doesn't pop, this might be the only Kings of Columbus this week. But then also there's a million things on the on this YouTube, the podcast YouTube channel, the podcast channel with Bill and Berm and Austin and a million other things going on. And on the Kings of the North, we'll have 2 Kings of the North this week. So we are going to we have this show with Ari where we're sort of talking about roster building. And then Bill, you and I later in the week on Kings of the North, we're going to lay it down for the first time. We're picking our 12 playoff teams for 2024. We want to lay that down multiple times during the course of the year as things evolve. But the first evolution of that is the NFL draft decisions being in. We know, okay, JJ McCarthy's not going to be here. How does that affect Michigan? Blake Corum's not going to be here, that kind of thing. We're going to lay down our playoff picks. I'm excited to pick 12 playoff teams, man.
Yeah, I am too, because because some of these rosters have changed significantly. So some for the better, some for the worse, obviously. But what I had in my head like 2 weeks ago, I feel like has already changed drastically based off some decisions that have happened in the last couple of weeks. So
I'll tell you what, like people, Ole Miss really did some work in the portal, and people are very excited about Ole Miss. And then like Quinshon Judkins coming to Ohio State, like kind of had to affect, at least to some degree, their view of Ole Miss, right?
I would think so. Yeah. I mean, he was their arguably best offensive player.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks to you guys for making Kings of Columbus part of your week here. We want to thank Mike Urostowski, our producer, who makes us look good and sound good. He is Bill Landis. I am Doug Lesmerises, and that was Kings of Columbus.